Alright guys, and welcome back to my little series of revisiting my old classic WoW leveling guides and updating them with some better information. Today's episode we're going to do the Hunter, and these are the topics that we're going to cover. First of all, I have an FAQ like what pets should you be using, what speed weapon should you be using, we'll talk about the optimal talent build, the rotation and playstyle, what gear and what stats to prioritise, bow progression, and also some tips on how to save up money for your mount. So what pet should you use? Well, to be honest, there's a number of options really. I'm going to tell you my personal preference and then the other good options that are out there. Personally, I think the most important thing when it comes to picking a pet is one simple calculation. How fast does that pet get to the target? Because if you don't have a pet with a speeding up ability like charge or dash, then you are ultimately wasting quite a bit of time every time you go and pull a mob. Plus some pets are just simply better than others because they do a lot more damage, and that difference can actually be about 20%, and certain pets have 2 focus dumping DPS abilities where a lot of others just have the 1. My recommendation is to go for a boar up until level 32. The boar is very good because he has charge, he's pretty tanky, and he eats absolutely everything. The only downside to a boar is the fact that he has a 10% damage debuff. And then when you get to level 32, that's when you go for a cat. And that's because at level 32, that's when a cat can learn dash. So this is a pet that's going to get into combat very fast. It does 20% more damage than a boar actually, and has 2 focus dumping ability, bite and claw. So it's very good for holding aggro. The only downside is it's technically a bit slower than charge, and they have a little less health than other pets, but it's fine. Remember also in vanilla, when you get a pet, the ranks of your pet's abilities don't automatically just rank up. You will have to stable your pet, go out back into the world, and tame a pet that has that higher ranked ability to then learn it on your character, to then transfer the ability to the pet with the beast training window. I have a full pet leveling guide that I'm going to leave linked in the description. It will show you exactly where to get every single key ability and from what pet and from what level and what zone it's in. There's one mistake in that video that I basically recommend for Horde to not get a boar because you can't get charge. It's totally wrong. The boars in Durotar do have charge, so don't worry about that. So it doesn't matter whether you're playing Alliance or Horde, it's a boar until level 32, and then you switch to a cat. Now, what aspect should you be in? If you know you're going to stay in a certain location for a fair amount of time, taking on a Murloc camp or something like that, you're not going to be moving around much because there's an abundance of mobs that you can just pull to you, that's when I go into aspect of a Hawk. But when I'm running around, and the mobs have quite a gap in between them, quite a bit of travel time, then honestly I normally just stick in Cheetah because you really just kind of want to get to the mobs as fast as possible and you want to take the tags obviously from other players. And a general rule of thumb is if it's only going to take about 20 to 25 seconds to get to the next mob, then it's not worth mounting up, just stay in aspect of a Cheetah. Now, should you go for a fast range weapon or a slow one? To be honest guys, doesn't really matter that much. You don't need to min-max on this like crazy level when you are low level. So ideally just go, the only stat you need to read on a bow is the DPS stat, which has the best DPS. But bear in mind that obviously slow bows consume ammo less frequently than fast bows. One thing I will say is that a slow bow, I would argue, is probably better for PvP, to be honest, if you are going for an aim shot marksman build, but we'll talk more about that later. Now, when it comes to talents guys, there is a number of ways that you can level a hunter. To be honest, I think all specs are fairly viable. Survival is probably the most funkiest, obviously, because then you're doing melee hunter shenanigans, which you'd be surprised it's not massively unviable even in the original vanilla. But for the vast majority of people, I will recommend for you to just go into Beast Mastery if you just want to level up as fast as possible and you want it to be, well, the easiest and smoothest, chilled experience as possible, because spec in Beast Mastery is all about just making your pet very, very powerful, so it takes all the aggro and obviously does most of the damage, and you just kind of chill back Going marksman is much better if you are on a PvP server and you do plan to do some PvP, because there are some talents there which are, you know, just better for PvP in general. This is the build that I recommended back in the day, and I think it still holds up, to be honest, although, like I did say in the previous slide, this is much more of basically a risky and aggressive leveling build for the hunter that doesn't prioritize defensive pet talents and just focuses mainly on pure damage for proper speed leveling. So here are some important tips and tricks and ground rules when it comes to leveling a hunter. Now, firstly, you want to be manually using pet growl. You should never have it on auto cast, and you should never also have it in some macro of a different ability. And this is because it actually costs focus to use growl, and a lot of time it's just not needed. You really should only be using it to get aggro on the pet and to get it back off if the aggro falls off, so that the pet prioritizes using his focus consuming abilities on actual damage abilities to hold aggro. So think about it like this: yes, the pet can hold aggro with growl, but it doesn't do any damage. It's better for him to focus on using his focus using DPS abilities to hold aggro rather than non-DPS abilities. You'd be surprised, to be honest, guys. Like, normally, like when you're chain pulling mobs, you only need to use growl once and the pet will hold aggro. You may want to consider using multi-shot when you unlock it, even on single target, because it is a DPS increase. Just be mindful, obviously, that it is obviously a bigger drain on your mana, so I wouldn't be using it absolutely all the time and spamming it. Another trick that some hunters like to do is they pull a second mob while the pet is dealing with the first mob with a serpent sting, and they pull it into an immolation trap. So while you're taking on one mob, there's another mob face tanking the hunter himself, but he's getting his hench people drained down by immolation trap and serpent sting. It's just a little trick to basically increase your efficiency, and obviously when you need to stop to regenerate your health, what you want to do is obviously eat and drink, but while you're doing that, you may as well get your pet to attack the next target. You should never be like really just sat there drinking and eating unless you and your pet are both really low in health, because you may as well just get the pet on the next target. And now for the playstyle and rotations. First thing you want to do is get an auto shot timer, otherwise it is going to be fairly difficult to pull off an optimal leveling hunter rotation. When you're low level, all you're really going to do is open combat by shooting, and then you're going to strafe until your shot becomes available again, and basically rinse and repeat, and that's it. You stop to shoot and you strafe a bit more, and then you just keep rinse and repeating that. Meanwhile, you're obviously going to be using concussive shot to keep the mob away from you, use serpent sting and arcane shot while moving, not while stopping, because then you actually are clipping your auto shot. So you shouldn't really be using on-use abilities while you are moving. Obviously, when you get a pet, you don't need to strafe as much because your pet is going to take the aggro. So all you're going to do is Hunter's Mark, get your pet on the target with his DPS abilities, and manually press growl once. Probably will only need that one growl. And then you open with an auto shot. You always open with an auto shot first rather than using an on-use ability, because if you open with an on-use ability, you are clipping your auto shot. You're basically wasting a few milliseconds on your auto shot, which is just a waste. You may as well not do it. So always open with a shot and then into a serpent sting while you're waiting for your auto shot to, shoot again. And you really got to feel the waters, but I normally only start to use Motor Shot and Arcane Shot basically when the mob is at around 50% to finish him off, but you may be able to use it sooner if your pet is, really good at holding aggro. And honestly, guys, that's it really. And when you unlock Aim Shot, or if you actually are going for a marksman build, I recommend using that at about 30%, because basically you want the pet to build up a good lead on the aggro before you start using really high DPS abilities like Aim Shot. So yeah, think about using Aim Shot as more of an execute ability. Now, when it comes to gearing, basically, don't overcomplicate it, guys. Prioritize agility and intellect, okay? We get agility because basically just increases our damage and our crit chance, really cannot complain, and the intellect allows us to basically, keep fighting for longer without having to stop to drink. It massively improves our efficiency. Now, if you are playing on a PvP server and you do want to engage in PvP, then you may want to be honest, prioritize stamina over intellect. Otherwise, you are just going to drop like a noodle. If I was playing on a PvP server, I would probably focus on monkey green pieces of gear with some intellect gear. I don't know why I've considered spell power pieces there. I guess that's probably not a good idea, to be honest, because people are going to get very angry at you. But I think what I'm just trying to say is sometimes if there's a really good spell power piece that has a ridiculous amount of intellect on it, you really only want to go for high agility and high intellect pieces of gear. Now for bow progression, guys, I did actually find a really old guide that I made, which is a really perfect bow progression. That was actually on the original hunter leveling video, so I've added that now to the weapon progression guide for every single class in the game. All you got to do is subscribe to the channel and you'll find it in the description of my subscriber only video. But when it comes to gold saving, guys, for your mount, honestly the advice in my old videos is pretty mediocre. My advice would be to check out my new video, Level Smarter Not Faster in Classic WoW, as it has a number of much better and refined gold saving tips on how to make a lot of gold by using the auction house rather than just vendoring crap and doing skinning while leveling up and dumb stuff like that. But anyway, guys, my name is Metagoblin. To the next video, ciao.